Texas State Bobcats find their quarterback, and the Troy Trojans, for the first time ever, finish in the top 25. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, hosting afternoons in Mobile, Alabama, covering the South Alabama Jaguars. I work on Sports Radio 105.5 WNSP, and prior to that, in Lafayette, Louisiana, 103.7 The Game, covering the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. All right, we'll get to Troy as they do finish in the top 25 for the first time ever, and we're still hoping to get him. But G.J. Kinne, new head coach at Texas State, who finished up coaching Incarnate Word during the FCS playoffs. And by the way, his player, Lindsey Scott Jr., his quarterback, who threw for 60 touchdowns this past season, was the Walter Payton Award winner. That's basically the Heisman Trophy of FCS. That is the Player of the Year. He won Player of the Year. So congratulations to Lindsey Scott Jr. But speaking of quarterbacks, they got a new one at Texas State, and it's a pretty big one. They got Malik Hornsby, 6'2", 180 pounds. He is originally from Missouri City, Texas. And the thing is, he was from Arkansas. Like, basically, he was going to replace KJ Jefferson, but KJ Jefferson stuck around, and Malik Hornsby didn't want to wait another year, especially when you see that Lindsey Scott Jr. threw for almost 4,700 yards, threw for 60 touchdowns, and I think ran for another 11. Like, an insane amount of offense. And Malik Hornsby apparently is giving the reins to the offense. We'll see if that's the case. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. He's now a 3-star for 24/7. But that is a major, major get for Kinne at Texas State. And so he's got their guy. He was the 8th-ranked dual quarterback in Texas coming out of high school. So G.J. Kinne's got his guy. But that's not the only thing. He's been crushing it from a recruiting point of view. Like, I'm not sure they had anybody before he got there. Like, I mean, 0 before he took the job. And he wasn't doing that full time until he was done with the playoffs. So he was kind of doing a little bit, but mostly concentrating on Incarnate Word in the FCS playoffs. Keff Ciardello, who we've had on the show before from the Statesman, says now they have like 20 commits. 24/7 isn't quite up on that. They have 5 who've signed a letter of intent, 2 who have committed but haven't signed yet. That's 7, and they got 9 transfers, so that's 16. So some numbers aren't quite up there yet, but still either 16 or 20. G.J. Kinne is doing a great job there because, again, with Jake Spavital leaving, and he totally believes in the transfer portal. I'm not sure he signed any high school kids before he left, like the big goose egg. Let's see who else they have signed from not signed, but getting transfer guys. Darius Jackson is a cornerback, 6'1", 175 from Missouri. They get Dan Foster, a defensive lineman, a little bit on the small size, 6'3", 240 out of Marshall. Joshua Eaton, cornerback out of Oklahoma. We told you about Hornsby out of Arkansas. Caleb Ford Dement out of Washington State. Ismail Mahdi, I think, out of UConn. Nash Jones looks like he's coming from Incarnate Word. Devin Wright from Boise State, and Cedric Roberts from OU. So that is a lot of Power 5 guys, from the quarterback to the cornerback. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the 9 are Power 5 guys. All right. And so let's see who they got for the high school kids. Chris Dawn Jr., a 5'7", 155-pound wide receiver. Bam Badusi, offensive tackle, 6'6", 310. Amarian Atwood, a cornerback, 6 foot, 170. Jake Simpson out of Independence High School, Frisco, Texas, tight end, 6'4", 220. And Denario Davenport out of Kilgore, Texas, a running back, 5'11", 190. The guys who have verbally committed: Taylor Starling, cornerback, 5'10 and a half, 170 pounds, out of Dallas, Texas, and Derek Morning, also out of Kilgore, Texas, linebacker, 6'3", 210. So G.J. Kinne is absolutely crushing the recruiting right now for Texas State. Of course, that's what he had to do. And, you know, when you're putting up those kind of numbers, and again, they put up tremendous numbers. We told you what Lindsey Scott Jr. did, those kind of numbers. But let's see if we get the stats, our total here, statistics. You know, points per game, 51 points, 51 and a half points a game. 51 and a half points a game. That is a ton, right? They averaged 366 yards in the air per game. Their average play was 8 yards per play. They put when he said they were going to light up the scoreboard, when he got the job, before he could fully commit, he was still at Incarnate Word. G.J. Kinne said they're going to light up the scoreboard. They scored 99 touchdowns. And although it felt like Georgia scored 99 touchdowns against TCU the other night, 99 touchdowns is a lot. What was their final record? Because when the playoffs, they played a lot. They finished 12-2. So they scored 14. They played 14 ball games. We want to do that real quick. Was that 5, 6? Can't get on the phone anymore without, let's see, 99. Probably should be able to do that in my head, but I can't. 7 touchdowns a game. 7 touchdowns a game. Probably could have done it in my head if I worked a little bit harder at it. So 7 touchdowns a game. All right, so the one thing that I'm a big fan of is when you're trying to start something new, and especially these days, although some teams like a Michigan are trying to do it differently, and have had some success despite losing to TCU, trying to run it a little bit more and keep it close, and then they're going to run over you in the fourth quarter, that kind of deal. Whereas you saw what Georgia did against TCU, kind of aired it out and ran it down their throat. You can't be boring. I'm a big believer in that. You got to put points on the board. No one wants to go see you win or lose, 24 to 17. Obviously, they prefer to win. But, boy, if you're starting to win or lose, 48-45, people have had a good time, right? Like, that was a great football game. Now, eventually, they're going to say, if we just get a little bit of defense, we can win these games. By the way, Incarnate Word gave up 25 points a game. So they averaged over 51 points a game, and they averaged giving up 25 points a game. It's going to be a lot of fun in San Marcos. Texas State has not. I don't think Texas State has had this kind of excitement for a long time. I know Jake Spavital came in with, some serious credentials, and he did his best, just could not basically get that quarterback. That quarterback was a revolving door for the Bobcats. Let's see how many years. I mean, Hornsby should have at least 3 years. No one does that anymore, right? Because I think he's played. Let's see. He committed. So he committed 20. That's the COVID year. So he does have 3 more years to go. 21 and 22. So 20 was the COVID year. So he does have 3 more years if he wants it, but no one does it anymore, but we'll see. So at least he's got 2 years. So now you can build around. The point is you can build around Malik Hornsby for a couple of years, get some, high school players in there who are going to follow him and go from there. All right. So that is a big deal very big deal for Texas State. So good job by G.J. Kinne, and we're still trying to get him on the podcast. We will get him on the podcast. Obviously, he's busy recruiting, so we'll get him when we can. All right, let me tell you about, before we tell you about BetOnline, Troy finishes in the top 25, ranked for the first time ever. All right, there's the tease. Hang tight. Hang tight. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends from every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well, such as Locked On Sunbelt. Excuse me. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Dave Schultz back with more of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. And, you know, we were all concentrating on the national championship on Monday night, although it seemed like Georgia concentrated more than TCU did. But by later in the day, you know, the top 25 had come out. And Troy was in there for the first time ever. So the Troy Trojans finished first, or not finished first, for the first time ever, finished in the top 25. And the USA Today coaches poll for the first time in program history. Both polls were announced Tuesday following the national championship game. Troy has the nation's second longest winning streak at 11, only to, wait for it, Georgia. Troy finished the season ranked 19th in the AP top 25 and 20th in the USA Today coaches poll. They very well may have been in the situation Tulane was. They may have been ahead of Tulane if they don't lose the Hail Mary game to App State. I'm not going to say, well, they could have done better against Ole Miss. I think they scored late. I think they were trailing Ole Miss 28-3 and scored a touchdown late to make it a little bit closer. Nonetheless, that doesn't change the fact that they only lost by 18 to Ole Miss in John Summerall's first game as head coach. So that doesn't change that fact. But if they don't lose on that Hail Mary, they could have lost on some other games. Don't get me wrong. They could have lost to Army. They could have lost to South Alabama. They could have lost to the Raging Cajuns. So they had a lot of close victories. But the way polls work, and we all know this, because basically in the top 25 and the higher you get, the more these teams are playing each other, someone has to lose. And if Troy, you know, this rolled off 11 straight wins, what if that was, you know, what if they were 13-1? What if they rolled off 13 straight wins or 12 straight wins before the bowl games came out? You know, would they have been in the Cotton Bowl against USC, right? That would have been a different ball game. I'm not sure if Troy could have kept up, but would they have been able to, you know, they held, I know it's two different programs, but UTSA came into the game scoring like 35 points a game, and they were held to 12. I'm just saying that Troy was just not that far away, although they finished 19th and they finished 12th. They very easily could have finished where Tulane did. Let's find out where that is. Because that's basically, you know, Tulane, I mean, they had a couple of losses too, didn't they? That's the thing. I mean, we got standings. Let's see the rankings. There you go. See if these are the final ones, and they are. Okay. So Tulane was ranked 9th, but they're also 12-2. Tulane's 12-2. Remember, Texas State started 1-2, right? They lost the first game, won the second one, lost the third one. So they had to work their way back. Whereas, you know, Tulane won, you know, their first 4. They had a tough loss against Southern Miss, but they went the season 9-1 before losing to 22 ranked UCF. But then they beat Cincinnati, and then they beat UCF in the conference championship game. And then, of course, they beat USC. So congratulations to Troy on making it to getting ranked for the first time ever. That's tremendous news, and we'll see what happens next year. Got to replace a lot of guys. Carlton Marshall on the defense, among others, and we had Jake Andrews, a center, on yesterday's show. So it'll be interesting to see how John Summerall gets to keep going. Whereas, again, we'll see what Southern Miss does. By the way, Trey Lowe, I think he committed to Liberty. Trey Lowe III, the quarterback from Southern Miss who went to the transfer portal, he committed to Liberty. We'll see what Southern Miss does quarterback-wise, but we know that I think we know Troy's quarterback situation with Gunnar Watson, and obviously South's quarterback with Carter Bradley. So we'll see what Troy does, and they have a heck of a schedule for the next season. So lots of work to be done there. All right, let's take another timeout. We do have some, unfortunately, sad news to get to, some tragic news hitting the South Alabama family. I will read the press release straight out. But I do want to thank you for continuing to watch Locked On Sunbelt and continue to subscribe to it. We should continue to have more guests on as these football coaches become more available, and hopefully continue to get some more players that are coming to the Senior Bowl. So that'll be here in Mobile, and maybe we could talk to some people as well that will be here during the week. See if they'll join us. Probably sitting right next to me, and we'll set it up technology so it looks like they're in a different spot. Who knows? But want to let you know that I do appreciate you watching and subscribing to the podcast. Of course, you can just search Locked On Sunbelt in any podcast app that you have, and you should be able to find it. And obviously, we are on YouTube as well. Tomorrow's episode, we will preview week 3 of the Sunbelt basketball. Let's see, does ULM stay hot? They got the Cajuns. Then the Cajuns are coming to Mobile on Saturday. We'll see what happens there. And does someone start to break out of the pack? Can South Alabama start to play? Again, I'm not a big believer in the whole, it's football at 60 minutes and basketball is 40 minutes. Well, we want to play a 40-minute game. So does the other team. So it's really hard to play a complete game unless it's just a total mismatch or you're on fire from 3. But they need to do better than the 20 minutes that they did against Texas State on Saturday. That first 20 minutes was not good at all. So you need to put together a 30, 25, 30-minute game at least, something along those lines. All right, so one more bit of news, and unfortunately, it is tragic. The former administrator and coach for South Alabama, Hale Williams, passed away on Tuesday night. Hale worked various roles, working 30-plus years and finishing his career as associate athletic director. 1976 graduate of South Alabama, Williams returned to his alma mater in 1988 to serve as head golf coach and NCAA compliance officer. Jaguar men's team won 3 Sun Belt titles under his direction. In 96, Williams was named assistant athletic director and relinquished the duties of golf coach. He was promoted to associate director of athletics in 2005. It's a local product, went to Mobile's Murphy High School, also went to the Citadel on football scholarship before transferring to South Alabama. Worked as a student assistant, a coach, and trainer under Jimmy Taylor and Cliff Ellis. Unfortunately, he had a heart attack just going to the Saints game on Sunday, walking to the Saints game, and he went to Tulane Medical Center, and unfortunately, he passed away on Tuesday evening. Williams is survived by his wife, Catherine, and their 4 sons, Kevin, Michael, John, and Tyler. We do send our heartfelt condolences anytime that Hal, our paths crossed. He was very kind and complimentary. So we do feel awful of the passing and kind of out of nowhere. So one of those things you just never know. So we will wrap up Locked On Sunbelt on, unfortunately, a sad note. Please sending our best to the Williams family. Well, once again, I'm your host, Dave Schultz, and you've been watching and listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.